Well, where to begin? Wanted to make a video because I finally got some time to myself. It's been a pretty busy weekend. There's been a lot going on. Heck of a lot of fights this weekend that I had to catch up on. For those of you who don't know, I was at the Josh Taylor Winston Campos fight last night in Glasgow. Loved it. It was a great card, great event. Main event was over very quickly. I mean, Josh Taylor just demolished the guy in 3 rounds, but I didn't mind that, okay, because the guy was a late replacement. Okay, it was a 30-something fight veteran, a guy who had a ton of experience. It was a decent opponent. He'd been training for another fight, so he was in shape. So it was a decent replacement opponent. As far as opponents that you can get on a week's notice, they could have picked worse, so I had no issue with the opponent. It was a great card. A few fights on the card that I want to talk about, but there was just so much that went on this weekend in the world of boxing. I really don't know where to begin. So, yeah, there was the Sergey Kovalev Igor Mikhalkin fight. There was the Dmitry Bivol Sullivan Barrera fight, which happened on the same card. Deontay Wilder, of course, defending his title against Ortiz, winning by knockout. Dirrell was stopped in 8 rounds by Jose Uzcategui, the guy who he won against by disqualification last year, controversially in my opinion. I'll start with the Josh Taylor card. So there were a few interesting battles on the undercard. First of all, got to give a big shout out to Glenn Foote, who scored a dramatic upset win against one of Cyclone's top prospects from Edinburgh, Jason Easton. Now, I've been following Jason Easton's career. He's a very promising prospect coming out of the amateurs. Very physically fit, very quick. Tall for the weight. He boxes at 140. And yeah, this fight was for the Commonwealth 140 title that was vacated by Josh Taylor recently. And Jason Easton was the favourite to win the fight. He was expected by many to win. He had a heck of a lot of support in the crowd, and I know because I was there. And a lot of his fans were sitting nearby me, and they were very disappointed afterwards. But I could tell by about the second round that he was going to lose the fight. I could tell right away because as soon as the bell rang, Glenn Foote was on a mission. Okay, he was on the front foot right away. He was crowding Jason Easton's space and not giving him any room to breathe and working him to the body and, landing uppercuts, landing left hooks and just pushing him back. And it was clear to me that Jason Easton hadn't got his tactics right. He had no idea how to defend himself on the inside, being pushed back to the ropes far too easily. He should have been using his size. He should have been using his movement, should have been using his jab. Should have been throwing a long right hand, and actually picking his punches, but instead he was just loading up and swinging, and he ended up getting broken down and brutally knocked out in the 11th round. He was down twice because he was down in the second round from a right hand, and he was brutally knocked out from a right hand in the 11th round. So yeah, it was an upset, or minor upset on that card. Big up Glenn Foote, man. It was a great performance by him to come to such a hostile territory and pull out a performance like that. As far as Josh Taylor's performance, he just, he was levels ahead of Winston Campos in terms of technique, in terms of athleticism. I mean, very early on in the first round, Josh Taylor took control, set a very high pace. He was working the body. He had a very sneaky counter right hook on the inside, and he just completely obliterated, mesmerized, and overwhelmed Winston Campos and put him down several times. The referee missed a knockdown at the end of the first round, but he came out in the second round, put him down twice. I thought that the fight was going to be over, but Winston Campos managed to, just out-slick him a little bit at the end and just, old man his way through the last round. He was quite cute in there with the way he was able to survive the onslaught. But then in the third round, it was just too much for him. Josh Taylor broke him down with the body shots and put him down again, and the referee'd seen enough. So yeah, it was a good performance. A few people in the crowd were disappointed, even though the people in the crowd were supporting Josh Taylor. A few people walked out right away without even listening to the announcement, and I heard people saying that it wasn't worth their money and stuff like that. But I mean, come on now, were you expecting Josh Taylor to just carry the guy? I mean, look, he got the job done. He got the job done by knockout, and I don't know what the complaint was about. I was personally happy. So yeah, great performance by Josh Taylor. He goes on to maybe get a world title shot in the near future. Barry McGuigan in the post-fight interview was talking about facing off against the winner of Amir Imam and I think it's Ramirez. I can't remember the name of the opponent he's fighting, but yeah, Amir Imam is fighting for the WBC title soon. So yeah, that's the opponent they're looking at because Josh Taylor is the WBC silver champion. So let's talk about some of the other stuff that went on. Now the Dmitry Bivol fight, that was the one I was really looking forward to. I didn't get to catch it live, however, but I did watch it this morning on YouTube. Thankfully, World of Boxing Promotions posted the fight on their channel. I don't know if it's still up, but it was on their channel this morning, and I watched it. Great performance by Dmitry Bivol. Schooled, dominated, and completely outclassed, and just completely schooled. Dmitry, he schooled Sullivan Barrera from the first round, man. It was just a complete domination. I didn't give a single round to Sullivan Barrera. I mean, just the difference in punching technique, the difference in athleticism, the difference in balance, the difference in accuracy, the difference in hand speed. It was just, everything was in Dmitry Bivol's favour, even though Sullivan Barrera looked like the bigger guy, looked a little bit longer. Dmitry Bivol was, fighting in and out using just simple, a simple basic 1-2, step back, step in, step in with a jab, throw the right hand, take a little half step back, and then come right back with your right hand, stuff like that, just basic stuff that they teach you in the amateurs, and, just using basic boxing fundamentals to completely school the guy. I was very, very impressed. He put Sullivan Barrera down heavily in the 12th round with a right hand. It was a real sharp combination of straight punches. There was also quite a few counter left hooks in there by Dmitry Bivol that were quite impressive. And Dmitry Bivol was cut in the second round by a clash of heads. There were quite a few clashes of heads in the fight, which I felt were mostly caused by Sullivan Barrera, but it was it wasn't too bad. I mean, he managed to deal with it. When you're a professional fighter, you're going to have to deal with cuts. And speaking of cuts, actually, one thing I forgot to mention was the really unfortunate situation in the Charlie Flynn fight. Charlie Flynn's a popular fighter from Glasgow here who fought on the Josh Taylor card, and for the second time in a row, fighting against the same opponent, the fight ended in the third round with a clash of heads and ended up as a technical draw. The same thing that happened between the same two opponents, the same two fighters. I mean, I forget the guy's name that Charlie Flynn was fighting, but the two guys clashed heads again, and both guys were cut badly above their eyes. And yeah, it was just, it was horrible, man. It was a horrible cut, and it's a shame for him because it's the second time it's happened in his career now, and it's really stalled his career. So yeah, that can happen in fights, and it's about how you deal with it. And Dmitry Bivol, thankfully, dealt with it professionally. He didn't let it panic him. He didn't let it take him out of his game plan. He stuck to the plan and he boxed and he won the fight clearly. And I personally thought he won every round. I mean, Barrera just couldn't hurt him, just couldn't do nothing with him, and Bivol just was always at one step ahead the whole fight. As for Kovalev, did his job, broke down Igor Mikhalkin, as we all knew he would. Igor Mikhalkin is a good boxer, but he lacks power for a light heavyweight. When you look at the light heavyweight division and who's at the top of that division, like Kovalev, Bivol, Barrera, Beterbiev, Stevenson, guys like that, these guys can all punch. They're all elite level power punchers, and Igor Mikhalkin just doesn't have the physical strength or the power to really deter these guys. So Kovalev just broke him down, took him out in the 7th. It was a pretty easy fight, to be honest. Sergey Kovalev's a great fighter. Okay, he's number one in the division as far as I'm concerned, until somebody legitimately beats him. Andre Ward never legitimately beat him, so to me, Sergey Kovalev is still the number one light heavyweight in the world. As for Andre Dirrell, another fight I want to talk about, that was the one I've just watched about half an hour ago. I got finished watching that fight. Andre Dirrell got absolutely punked from start to finish. One-sided domination. Andre Dirrell, I don't really want to pick on Andre Dirrell too much, but he's not a fighter that I like very much because I think he's an extremely, he's got a real weaselly demeanour about him by the way that he conducts himself in and out of the ring. He absolutely robbed Uzcategui the first time, in my opinion. And when I say that he robbed him, I mean, it's hard to say how much criticism I throw Dirrell's way, but he was hit like slightly after the bell, and in my opinion, he pretended to be knocked out in order to get a disqualification. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why I'm not gonna take Andre Dirrell's word for it that he was really knocked out, is because he also did the same thing against Arthur Abraham in a fight that he was ahead on the cards, but he was on his way to getting knocked out. If you look at the way that fight was going, Andre Dirrell was getting broken down. He'd run out of gas. He was panicking. He was shitting himself. He was falling all over the place. He was running for dear life, trying to survive. The referee was on his side. Lawrence Cole was laughing and joking with Andre Dirrell and his team all the way through the fight and helping them every step of the way. And when Arthur Abraham started to get pissed off and started to chase him down, Dirrell found his way out and he took it and got a disqualification victory in that one. So I felt he did the same thing against this guy. But yeah, in this fight, the guy wasn't having none of it. He took his time, he was patient, worked behind a jab. He was stalking Andre Dirrell, he was pushing him back, he was setting him up with the jab, throwing hooks to the body, a few uppercuts here and there, straight right hand, basic stuff, but Andre Dirrell just couldn't handle it. And even though Andre Dirrell was a lot quicker than this guy and a lot sharper, he just couldn't handle it because to me, Dirrell doesn't have the heart of a fighter. He's not really a championship level fighter in terms of his mindset and his mentality. So he got broken down, got beaten up, and then he quit after the 8th round. They tried to make it seem as if the corner pulled him out, but Dirrell, he quit. He was telling his corner no, he was shaking his head and he was refusing to sit on the stool. He didn't want to fight. He just didn't want to continue. He just didn't have the what's the word I'm looking for? The machismo to go back in there, after taking a beating for the first 8 rounds and just give it a go and, try and win the later rounds. He just didn't have that in him. Okay, he isn't made that way. So, yeah, he decided to give up, loses the fight by stoppage. And to be perfectly honest, it's justified because he should have lost the last fight too, in my opinion. But he found a way out. But for this fight, he couldn't find a way out because the opponent was just stalking him and not really overexerting himself to get the knockout. He was just breaking him down gradually. And to be perfectly honest, I actually thought Andre Dirrell should have lost his last couple of fights because he lost to, in my opinion, my personal opinion, he lost to Blake Caparello. I watched that fight on TV. I remember they were showing it on Spike, and I actually thought that Dirrell lost that fight. He got dropped, he got outworked. He did a heck of a lot of holding and fouling that he got away with. That's American boxing for you. He got away with it. And yeah, I thought Dirrell should have lost that fight by decision. But yeah, he got the decision, that one. The judges bailed him out. So he really should have multiple defeats on his record now. I know that the one thing he's still hanging on to is the fact that he was robbed of a decision against Carl Froch back in 2009. Yeah, fair point. He was robbed in that fight. And yeah, he beat Carl Froch. Let's be honest, guys. He did. But he can't hold on to that forever. Okay, you need to make adjustments as a fighter, and it's like since that Froch fight, Dirrell hasn't made any adjustments whatsoever. He's just gotten worse. He's just regressed. There's been long layoffs, awful performances, and yeah, I think it's about time he should probably retire now. So enough about Andre Dirrell. I don't know why I'm spending so much time talking about him. As for Deontay Wilder and the Luis Ortiz fight, I've only seen bits of the fight here and there. I wasn't able to find a full video of the fight. If anyone's got one, I'd appreciate you letting me know. If you can maybe send me one in the description. Sorry, the comment section of the video. Because I would like to watch the fight, but I've only seen highlights here and there. But from what I did see, Deontay Wilder, I said in comments all over the place. I'm sure you can find the comments on other people's videos. I didn't make a video about the fight, but I'm sure you can find my comments. I said that I expected Ortiz to outbox Wilder for a few rounds, to make Wilder look shit, and then eventually Wilder would just pull the knockout out of the hat, seemingly out of nowhere. He'd land a shot, Ortiz would go down like a sack of spuds, and Wilder would get the knockout, because that's the pattern that Wilder's fights have been following. That's what Wilder does. He loses the fight and then he comes back and somehow lands a knockout blow. You wonder afterwards whether the fight was real or not. In my opinion, the Bermain-Stavern fight was an obvious fix. The Malik Scott fight was an obvious fix. I don't think the Areola fight was. I don't think that the Spilka fight was. Well, I mean, those guys were beaten up badly in terms of the knockout that they took. I mean, Areola just got a pasting, and as for Spilka, he was winning the fight, but that right hand he took put him in hospital. Put him to sleep. But I don't think that the Bermane-Stavern fight was real, and I don't think that the Mallet Scott fight. Well, we all know that the Mallet Scott fight was fake, but that's the thing with Deontay Wilder. You just don't know what you're gonna get with his fights because you don't know whether they're gonna be scripted or not. And with this Luis Ortiz fight, it just followed that same pattern of Luis Ortiz outboxing him. He's the better fighter. He's schooling Wilder. He's making Wilder look like a bum, and then Wilder lands something and wins the fight. That's just how it is with Wilder. That's how his career's going. And when is his luck gonna run out? Because there's no way that you can win every single fight like that again. When you start to increase your opposition, and this is the first opponent in 40 fights that has actually been a credible opponent. Pretty much everyone else he's fought has been subpar. Less than B level. C level at best, to be honest. But yeah, wasn't impressed with Deontay Wilder. Wasn't impressed at all. We knew he could punch. We already knew that, but what we don't know is, where he is technically. Well, we do know, and that's the thing. We want to know if he's improved, and clearly he hasn't. So, yeah, I'm not that impressed. Not that impressed with Wilder at all. I know Wilder has a cult of fanboys out there, a bunch of mentally disturbed individuals that really, really ride his dick hard and troll videos with multiple ghost accounts. I've seen people in videos. I've seen comments from all these like new accounts, multiple ones, dick riding Deontay Wilder, man. Deontay Wilder has a lot of fucking insane, rabid fanboys out there. It's really crazy to see. And I was saying on someone's video earlier today that Wilder is a 40-fight veteran, right? A 40-fight veteran, a 10-year professional veteran, a guy who is a former Olympic bronze medalist. So this is a guy with many, many years of experience. So I want to know why people are pretending like he's still in development. Why are people pretending like Deontay Wilder is some prospect with only a couple of fights that needs development? The guy is a veteran fighter. Okay, he should have a resume by now that we can compare to other fighters, but he doesn't. Okay, Vladimir Klitschko has a resume. All right, even Anthony Joshua has somewhat of a resume, or he will once he beats Joseph Parker, if and when he does. So, Deontay Wilder, because of the lack of credible opposition, he just doesn't have a resume that's worth talking about. So it is what it is. We'll see where he goes from here. Hopefully they can get the Joshua Wilder fight on soon, because all these bullshit fights in between, man, they're just not exciting to me. Enough about Deontay Wilder. I want to talk about Kell Brook. Very impressed with Kell Brook. Very impressed. He won he won an important fight, because this was a fight where, there was a lot on the line, because if he loses this fight, it would have been basically the end of his career. But he came out against Sergey Rabchenko, who's a tough guy, a guy that can punch, a decent 154-pounder. I remember watching Sergey Rabchenko fight Anthony Mundine. He lost that fight, but he put up a decent performance. It was a close fight, but he lost it pretty clearly, in my opinion. But put a lot of pressure on Mundine over in Australia and was able to make it close. And Anthony Mundine's a very underrated fighter. But Kell Brook did a destructive job. I mean, he stopped the guy in 2 rounds, blew him away quickly. He proved that he's still a draw in the UK too, because they were able to draw a massive crowd over in Sheffield. And I was impressed with Kell Brook. Kell Brook looks fantastic at 154 pounds. And you know what I say? I say put him in there with Erislandy Lara. Put him in there with Jared Hurd. Put him in there with any of these top 154 pounders, and let's see what he's made of. Let's see if he can win. Okay, Kell Brook is a veteran of the sport now. Okay, he's had many fights. Okay, I haven't looked at his record. I can't remember how many fights exactly he's had, but it's well over 30. He only has 2 defeats, one to Triple G, the middleweight champion, and the other one was against Errol Spence, who, according to these LGBT channels, is the greatest thing since sliced bread. One of the greatest fighters of all time, apparently. So, so yeah, Kell Brook. And let's not forget that that was a damaged Kell Brook coming off a loss, and he was dangerously weight drained. Let's be honest, guys. Kell Brook should have moved up in weight long ago. I think for the past couple of years, he should have, at least 2 years ago, he should have moved up to 154. And he did move up was it last year? No, it was the year before. He moved up the year before to middleweight to fight Golovkin, but he should never have moved back down to welterweight. It was a stupid career move, in my opinion. I said before the fight against Errol Spence that it was a silly move, and it was. But, he's seems to be settled into 154 now, and let's see what he's made of. Let's see him in big fights. I would like to see the Jared Hurd fight or the Erislandy Lara fight, the Charlo fight, if one of the Charlos is still at 154, I think. Maybe even the likes of Austin Trout, maybe even a Liam Smith fight. I'd love to see that fight. Liam Smith versus Kell Brook is a stylistic, it's a really, really good stylistic matchup. Let's be honest, that'd be a great fight. Love to see it. They could really sell it in the UK. Unfortunately, and this is a problem with Kell Brook, I think he's still going to be chasing that Amir Khan fight, and it's probably going to be at welterweight again. I mean, he just needs to forget about Amir Khan. Amir Khan doesn't want to fight him. Just forget about that fight. It's past its sell-by date. Try and become world champion at 154. That's what Kell Brook should do, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about that, because Kell Brook's a fighter who I've always liked. He's entertaining. I like to listen to him. I think he's quite charismatic and funny, and I think he can certainly be a force at 154. I've always thought that about Kell Brook. So yeah, good performance by Brook against Rabchenko. What else happened this weekend? I'm trying to think if there was anything else. There was quite a few prospects in Glasgow that fought, but I don't really know if I should really bother talking about them because they haven't done much yet. But yeah, there were some good prospects. Lee McGregor, I already talked about Charlie Flynn. What's the other guy? Joe Ham, another unbeaten prospect from Glasgow. So yeah, there's some good prospects that I got to see fight live, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great card. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As I said, I didn't see the Wilder fight. I only saw highlights here and there. Wasn't impressed with Wilder, and I was unimpressed with Ortiz too. I mean, really poor stamina, and he just looked slow to me and sluggish. So wasn't impressed with him. It was a good weekend of boxing. Dmitry Bivol I was most impressed with because he had the most dangerous challenge in front of him in Sullivan Barrera. Kovalev did what he does. I mean, Kovalev's just a great fighter. He's one of the best light heavyweights of all time. As for Josh Taylor, can't wait to see him fight for a world title maybe at the end of the year. I do think he could be the best fighter at 140 right now. He's certainly the best British fighter at 140. And yes, that includes Terry Flanagan. Yes, that includes Jack Catterall. And of course, that includes Ahara Davis and all those guys. He's better than all those guys, okay? Line him up. He'll beat him. So let me know what you guys think anyway. I know this was quite a long video. I'm probably not going to upload this video today. I'll probably upload it tomorrow because I just don't have the time. I've got stuff to do. And it takes a heck of a long time to upload videos here. I don't know why, but the connection is complete crap. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.